Okay. So today we're here with Sydney Ashton, who was recruited to play volleyball at VCU in 2020 under head coach Jody Rogers. Sydney's time at VCU lasted just one semester, and I think your story highlights how a coach can make or break an athlete's experience. And Sydney, you've been pretty open a little bit about your mental health, a little bit of imposter syndrome, some performance anxiety. And so today you're here to share your story and some of the warning signs you saw and what future recruits can learn from your experience. So, Sydney, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
First question, what did Coach Rogers say or do during the recruiting process that made you feel like VCU was maybe the right place? And if you can share any specific promises or statements, that would help too. But if not, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I went into the recruiting process already like a big fan of VCU. I had been a fan of theirs for a few years. I started playing volleyball in sixth grade and I loved watching college volleyball. I really admired Coach Rogers as like one of the only female top performing like female Division One coach at the time. There's so many now, which is amazing. But yeah, at the time, VCU was top 50 in the NCAA, which made it like very, very appealing. I had talked to Rogers a few times during the recruitment process. I mostly was chatting with the assistant coach, who was the like defensive coach, who I would have been. He was the one that actually recruited me.
Mm.
Of course, like Rogers has the final say, had the final say, and like if I was given a spot or not. But from the conversations with them, the team seemed like, I don't know, everyone was really close knit on the team. They were high performing. Richmond's a great city, so that also made it very appealing. Rogers said we would win. It was, we had a class of, I think, seven freshmen incoming. I think I was the seventh or the eighth. So it was a really big freshman team, which was very appealing to me. Just, to have people to grow with. And yeah, I guess that's what made it
Yeah.
like super appealing to me. Yeah. And
And
the winning rap sheet, of course, was very appealing.
right. Yeah, those all seem very appealing. But once you arrived on campus, how quickly did you realize this is not the place, or the reality doesn't exactly match the recruiting pitch? And like, just if you could walk through some red flags.
Yeah. I don't know when like the first red flag was noticed. I think actually the first one was even before I came onto campus. The two assistant coaches had quit. I didn't really know why. That wasn't really shared until I reached out to them. No, I think they reached out to me to tell, like one was just moving on and then the other one stepped down for personal reasons, which was a little shady in my opinion. But trying to think of a red flag. Oh, when we would practice, we would have to like rate our practices afterwards. So like every time we finished practice, Rogers would be like, "How do you think you did?" Scale from like 1 to 5. And we always were so anxious to give her an answer in case it was the wrong answer. Like, God forbid we said 4 out of 5 when she really thought it was maybe like a 2 or a 2.5, and that was like a whole thing. So that was something that like constantly happened. And then what was the other one? Oh, I was very, very close with my teammates. I'm still very close with a few of them now. I recently just had lunch with one of them when I went back to New York. A lot of my teammates had a very difficult relationship with food. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, that was definitely a red flag. And I think a lot of the difficulties with food and like, counting calories and, as an athlete, like you try to eat healthy and then, as a female athlete, like the pressure as well of like being a woman and body image issues and all of that is very intensified, especially with a coach like Rogers who really emphasized on us looking good. I mean, I don't know of any other program that would weigh female volleyball athletes. Like, I don't know if that's the norm, but I just thought that that was so odd and like it caused so much anxiety among my friends, my teammates. Just like the days where we were tested, we were weighed. I mean, like our BMIs were tracked and like we had certain, what did they do? They like would measure, literally grab like the fat on your arm and like measure. I'm like, it was just really bizarre. And
Yeah.
I didn't really know anybody else that was playing like at that high of a level to where I could have been like, hey, like, is this normal? Is this something I still don't know? But I just thought that that was really, really odd. Um, we had a lot of extensive conditioning, and I understand being in shape, but it was like we would lift really heavy every morning, normal, and then in the afternoons we would just run and run and run and run. And we thought it was pretty extensive, even though, and like we weren't even playing, like it was 2020. I'm like, who are we competing against? We're like competing against ourselves. So that was another red flag. Um, what else? Oh, and then of course, like the verbal abuse started with Rogers, and I can get into that now, or we can talk
Yeah,
about
well, I
it.
was going to ask it. It seems like we could skip a couple questions out. It seems like the coaching style is much different than what you expected.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, if you just want to share maybe a time where you ever felt dismissed or disrespected or sort of treated as if you were just disposable and what impact that had on you.
Yeah, that's a good question. So to set the stage, this is like 2019 going into 2020. It's like the height of like the Black Lives Matter movement. There's so much like police brutality and just like everyone was really anxious in the country, obviously. So we have that. We have the fact that we're living in Richmond, which was like the capital of the Confederacy. So everything is just like, there's protests all the time. We could look out our window and see like people protesting, police, like those like flash bang, like, it was
Yeah.
just like really crazy that. And then like, like a third of my teammates, we were all Black. And then on top of that, we have a global pandemic going on where I'm sure like I had family members who passed. I'm sure some of my teammates had family members. It was just a lot of heightened like emotion. And I think the one thing we all needed in that moment that we didn't get was empathy and an empathetic coach who was a little more like worldly and understanding the context of things. So I think her not getting to know us very well and just not really acknowledging what was going on was like a huge red flag. And, I'm sure some of my other teammates felt like very dismissed, but
Yeah.
yeah, I felt very dismissed by her. And then on top of that, um, with like the verbal abuse, just like every day being called a loser, being called like replaceable, like I like how are you supposed to feel when you walk into practice and you're being called a loser? It takes a toll. Like it's horrible. You can laugh about it now, but like it was so horrible. We were
Yeah.
like 17, 18-year-olds up to like 23-year-olds or something. But yeah, it was rough.
So yeah, you talk about sort of a lack of support.
Mhm.
I want to get into that lack of support, like specifically in terms of performance. When your confidence or performance suffered, how did she respond? I mean, was there ever support? Or, you know, yeah, if you could walk me through that, specifically like when you're actually playing.
Mhm. Um, Not really. There was not really any support from her or the newer assistants. Like I can recall one time that it was like before practice, we were kind of scrimmaging. Like she wasn't even there yet, I don't think, but we were scrimmaging. This was like before warming up, and I had shanked a ball or something like that. And my assistant coach got so mad at me and like sent me off to the side to go do push ups or something like that. And then I ended up just not like finishing the scrimmage with them just because I was like, why is this something like you're yelling at me about? But then that ended up being a thing, and I was like brought into like Roger's office with like the assistants to like talk about like what happened. And I'm like, I shanked a ball during like our pre warm up and was like reprimanded for it. yeah, they just weren't very approachable. Like I couldn't come to them with any sort of thing I was struggling with. Even like when I would ask questions about things, I was just like dismissed. I felt just very dismissed. I can't even like talk about support because I never went up to either one of them for anything just because they were not approachable,
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
And you spoke a little bit about your imposter syndrome
Mhm.
and performance anxiety. What role did the coaching, what role did coaching play in intensifying those feelings? And you can give examples. You've had a lot of good examples. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean like I said, when I joined the program, it was like a top 50 program like in NCAA Division One women's volleyball. So like there was pressure with that and like we had a huge graduating senior class before we came in, so there was pressure to like live up to their expectations, fill their shoes. I came in, there were two defensive players. It was me and like a junior. So, we had just graduated the libero who had started for maybe like 3 of the years that she was there. So big shoes to fill. Yeah, I just think let me figure out what I'm trying to say. um,
It seems like they just weren't very supportive at all.
no, yeah, no. And just like being called like a loser and replaceable every single day didn't
Yeah.
play into like getting better. Like it's
Yeah.
like I have this mentality, I think this about myself, and then it reflected that on the court, unfortunately, for
And
the
it seems like, and you shared a little bit like what your coaches were lacking in terms of support. Your teammates maybe were helping a little bit. You said that you adored your teammates. Was there ever a time when they noticed you were struggling and they tried to step in, or when you felt like you were torn between something between you and the coach, and they helped you with that?
we were all in the trenches.
Yeah.
Like honestly, we were all struggling so much. Some people more than others. Yeah, I don't even know how to answer that.
Yeah,
Just
I mean,
yeah.
it's I think that is an answer that it
Yeah.
wasn't just you, it was everyone, and it's kind of like we're in this together.
Yeah. I
Which
mean, one of my teammates after the fact, like admitted to being like suicidal at one point, like on this team, like, and it makes me emotional because it's just like this is volleyball. It's not
yeah.
like, it's just volleyball.
Were there any, and you mentioned the recruiting, there you didn't notice any red flags until you got there? Do you recall any red flags actually in the recruiting process or no that you ignored?
Uh, Not really. Usually when
Hmm.
you're being recruited, like the coach, they kind of love bomb you with different
Yeah.
things and are like telling you everything is great and this and that. I personally wish I had like reached out to some of the athletes beforehand, because I was kind of like in too deep at that point, to kind of, yeah, I don't know. There weren't many red flags. It was kind of just, I don't think a lot of people had transferred out, not that I could recall, but this was like 6 years ago, sort of. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good piece of advice that maybe you should look into reaching out to players before you actually commit to a
mhm.
school. Last
Yeah.
question. For recruits listening today, if you could leave them with anything, what advice would you give them to maybe protect themselves from ending up in a situation like yours? And do you believe there are any concrete steps that they can take to evaluate a coach beyond, their little lovey-dovey pitch? I mean, that was one of them you just mentioned, maybe reach out to the players before him, but
Yeah.
are there any others? And that might be the best one, but
Yeah.
any
I
others you
think
can.
that would be my main advice. Do
Mm.
your research. I would look back like 5 years in the program and like evaluate the rosters, see who's transferring, who's staying, like what's the transfer rate. If you're good at math, you can like figure that out. But reach out to past players. You can reach out to present players too and just say, hey, like, please be candid with me. Like, what is this like? How is the coach? I would just say ask a lot of questions. One thing I kick myself for not asking was like how the coaches dealt with like academics and like academic pressure and stuff like that. Like my coach did not really, I was failing math at one point and she just like didn't care and would scream at me for being late to practice. I wasn't late. I was just not an hour early. So just like, yeah, like how do they deal with like academics? Do they care about academics? Because that's a big thing. Do they care about you as a person and your growth outside of your sport? Because unfortunately, my coach didn't really do that. Also, if you're if you find yourself in a similar situation, which a lot of athletes do, put yourself first and leave. Like it was so hard for me to leave because I love my teammates and I'm like getting emotional talking about it. But yeah, advocate for yourself. You don't have to put up with like being depressed. It's volleyball. It's a
Right.
sport at the end of the day. Like it's not, it's not life or death. So
Right.
yeah.
Awesome.